It's time for this week's episode of Brandon Sports Talk, featuring in-depth interviews from those who are trending in the world of athletics. And now, here's the host of Brandon Sports Talk, Brandon Pate.
Welcome back to Brandon Sports Talk. In today's episode, I have the privilege to interview the podcast owners of Hit the Books podcast, Tyler and Mac. How are you doing today?
Doing good, doing good. Happy to be here. Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Yeah, excited to be on.
Can y'all talk about how y'all knew that y'all wanted to get started in coming out with a sports podcast talking about gambling too?
Yeah, Mackie, I'll start us out with this one. So obviously me and Mackie, we went to West Virginia together. Growing up throughout college, he through his freshman year, I've known him. We'd be watching sports together at my house, whether it's basketball, football, hockey, baseball, we do it all. So we'd be sitting there watching games, screaming at the TV, just saying, I wish there was a camera sitting right there in front of us to get some of our reactions for these games. And I mean, 3 years later, we kind of put something together here with this, and this is kind of the version that we got out of it. But it's been a lot of fun 2 years in, going on our third football season that we're covering here. So, but I'd say that's definitely what made us want to get going. Just the urge for kind of seeing our reactions for games and giving our takes in front of a camera. And now we're finally able to do it.
Mackie, how did y'all come up with the name Hit the Books?
So this is actually a question for Huff because I'm not exactly sure. It was so Huff and Jesse were like the start of it, and then Huff was like, "Do you want to be on this?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm in right away." But Huff, how did we come up with this name? I don't even think we've ever gone over this.
I truly just thought of this off the dome. I was sitting there one day whenever I first thought of the idea to do it. I'm like, all right, sports books, sports gambling, sports. How can I relate all this together and back into kind of an informative way for something where you see the name and it's kind of something that stands out a little bit. So I kind of just I truly don't know how I came up with Hit the Books, but kind of works both ways. Got to study hard and you got to hit those sports books if you want to win some money.
Of course, Huff, did you always know that you wanted to have a podcast talking about sports gambling?
I I don't know if I always knew I wanted to be a podcast. I always grew up watching ESPN every day. I've always kind of wanted to be that guy sitting on ESPN in the morning at 8 a.m. in the suit, all buttoned up, kind of giving their takes. But with this kind of format, you can be a lot more laid back and say a lot more hot takes where ESPN's not paying you to say one thing or the other. But definitely always knew I wanted to be something with sports and something out there. But kind of create my own platform to do it. I think it's been the way to do it.
Huff actually wasn't the biggest gambler when I first met him. I was the big gambler, and he was like, "You're throwing all this money on these games," and I was like, "Yeah, dude, like it makes it that much more better. A Wednesday night hockey game you can get all excited into." But now Huff's probably bigger than I am in the gambling aspect of everything. But yeah, I kind of introduced that to him, and he just kind of took it and
you
ran with
definitely
it.
did. You definitely did because I remember sitting there. I'd be like, the Bucks are playing tonight. Bucks are playing like the Lakers, and you're like, oh, I took Charlotte. I'm like, I don't want to watch Charlotte Hornets, so we're watching the Bucks and the Lakers.
Of
You're
course,
like, you don't. You're like, you didn't bet on this, and you just want to watch it. I'm like, yeah.
what sports do y'all cover and what teams do y'all cover?
We basically cover every sport. Mainly, we cover football, baseball, basketball, and hockey. I'd say mainly football and hockey because we've all played hockey our entire lives. But our we obviously cover our favorite teams, mostly the Pittsburgh area, New York area, and the New England area. But definitely our favorite sport to go over is football, I'd say.
Of
Absolutely.
course, what has that been like? Obviously, getting to cover the Pittsburgh area with franchises like the Pittsburgh Penguins and Pittsburgh Steelers in it.
So unfortunately for myself, I didn't start this podcast until after the Penguins back-to-back Stanley Cup run and a little bit after the Steelers were in their dominant era of the early 2000s and 2010s with Ben. But I definitely have my good bit of ammo to come at whenever people try to come at my sports town for not being too successful as of late. Obviously, I don't have too much to talk about with the Pirates, but my Steelers and Penguins always give me something to root for going into each fall and winter, I'd say.
Of course, what are some of the favorite hockey teams that y'all have had the privilege of covering?
Mac,
I'd
can
say
you
the
take this one?
Yeah, I'd say the Rangers have been pretty damn good recently, and I'm a Rangers fan. I'm from New York, so I love covering them. The Bruins, our other buddy is from Rhode Island, and he roots for the Bruins, and obviously they're coming off that historic season, the best regular season record of all time. And then it's nice to chirp him about that first round exit that they got. So he likes to let it, he let us hear it the entire season about how good they were, and I let him hear it after that first round exit. But I'd say all of our three teams are pretty relevant, so it's fun to go over the Rangers, Penguins, and Bruins.
Of course, besides covering hockey and the NFL, what other main sports do y'all cover? And do you cover any college sports like football and basketball?
Yeah, so definitely college football, college basketball. Actually, me and Mackie had a hell of a season last year in college basketball. That was our most successful sport. If we kind of break up our records by what the sport is, so college basketball is a different record than the NBA. We like to see how we're hitting at each sport. So college basketball, we were hitting it. I don't even know. We ended the season around 14 units positive. It was definitely our best in the season. We killed March Madness. March Madness is always a big part of the year for us. Something that we look forward to. College basketball. I prefer college basketball over the NBA to actually sit down and watch and bet on, but I definitely appreciate the talent that's in the NBA. It's just a lot of the sitting out in the regular season. For me, the NBA season doesn't even start until Christmas Day. So until Christmas Day, I'm consuming a lot of college basketball, I'd say.
Of course, what are some of the sports in college basketball that you've had the teams you've had the privilege of covering?
But we definitely go over the powerhouses, the bloods like Duke, Kentucky, Kansas. Kansas was a pretty electric team over the past few years. They had Grady Dick, drafted 12th overall to the Raptors, I think. It was 12th overall, but just those teams that are popping out. You had John Moran at Murray State. You like to see those low-level teams with the good players that pop out right around March Madness, but those big players, I mean, we definitely like to go over them. Alabama last year with Brendan Miller. Alabama's not always on the radar, but they're a powerhouse last year, and they obviously had that scandal with Brandon Miller. So there's a lot to talk about there. But just those powerhouse teams, you can talk about those for days.
Yeah, in the past 2 seasons, obviously, like we said, March Madness is huge for us. So we always eat up those Cinderella teams in March Madness and try to call one of them. Last year, me and Mackie were all over that Florida Atlantic team and that Miami team to get pretty far. So to see them kind of prove us right and get down to the Final Four, I know neither of them ended up making it to the national title game, but that FAU team, and then the year before, excuse me, we had St. Peter. So always fun to root for those Cinderella teams in the March Madness tournaments.
Of course, when it comes to the college football, what has that been like? Obviously, seeing the bets happen with obviously the championship games, like how Georgia's gone to three, Alabama's always been in the championship runs. What has that been like for y'all?
So
Yeah,
go ahead, Mackie.
now Huff, you go on this because you're big on Georgia, so go ramble on about them.
I was gonna say, I think this year we're gonna see a little bit of a shakeup in the college football world. I think me and Mackie were talking about our predictions for the college football playoff this year. I think you're gonna see teams like Florida State stay up there. The winner of the Big Ten, but I'm predicting Penn State to beat Michigan. So I like Penn State to get in one of those Final Four spots. I think Georgia's still gonna get there, in my opinion. They're still gonna beat that number 4 team that squeaks in between Ohio State, USC, and whoever else is sitting right there. But it's going to be tough. I think you could see a Georgia Florida State national title game, and I think in that situation we know what the SEC does to the ACC. I think there's a good situation we could see Georgia win the national title again. They started the season a little slow, but they're not really playing any teams that are too competitive to them right now. So I don't think we're seeing that team at 100%.
I'm not on Georgia this year. I like USC. I like Caleb Williams. I think he's the best player in college football. He's going to win another Heisman in my opinion. But Huff is definitely big on those dogs going for the three.
I truly think I'm the 2 teams I like this year. I mean, 3. I mean, I'm a West Virginia alum, but being from Pittsburgh, I have a lot of buddies that went to Penn State, so I casually root for Penn State football. I'd like to see them make the college football playoff before things go to the expanded playoff and say they made it with the original 4 teams. But I'm big on this Florida State team as well as that Georgia team. I think Georgia, I mean, they just always have the guys to get it done.
Of course, Huff, with obviously the talk lately of Georgia going on a repeat and stuff. What is that like, and what do you see in the gambling world on that?
So it's really hard to call their games. They're getting 30, 40-point spreads some weeks against some of these teams, and even against some of the better teams in the SEC. They'll get like a Kentucky or a Vanderbilt. I mean, not saying they're top tier teams in the SEC, but still playing that SEC caliber of football. And you go to Georgia and you're only getting maybe 17 to 20 points, and you're able to cover that. So, and a lot of the public's always on Georgia with that number 1 seed ranked right next to their name. A lot of people see that and jump on them, think it's going to be an easy win. And things can start slow in college football. They play 60 minutes for a reason. Those big spreads can be scary, and you really got to know what you're looking at going into each Saturday.
Of course, Mikey, when looking at the spread, what are some of the things that y'all look at when looking at that spread?
Yeah, you definitely bring home field in college football. Home field advantage is a huge aspect. The atmosphere is huge. You go into Penn State and you have to play in that whiteout. Good luck getting out of there alive. So you obviously look into that. You look into the recent games. You look into injuries. A lot of the money splits as well. You got to look at where the public is, because in college football with those top teams, a lot of the money on one team, and you usually see it going the other way. But that's just a few things that we look into. I don't want to give away all of our secrets over here.
Of course, what are some of y'all's segments that y'all have had on the podcast?
Yeah, so we kind of dive into we do our power rankings every week of the MLB, of the NFL. We like to break that down and give each of our takes as to who we missed, who we took, or who we think should have been higher, who could have been lower. I know how we do our list is we each send a top 5 or our power rankings for each sport. We kind of have a scoring system, and then we kind of give each team a point rank. And at the end, whoever gets the most points in order, that's our top 5. So we like to go through our power rankings each week, as well as all the other sports we go through. And at the beginning, we like to do a kind of a draft system, something totally unsports related, just to kind of break the ice for the podcast and get us rolling.
Of course, Mikey, leading up to the Stanley Cup, what is that like covering the NHL leading into the Stanley Cup run?
Oh, it's absolutely electric, because the NHL is one of the hardest sports to predict. You can see any team come out any night, and it's a long 7-game series where these guys are just beating the shit out of each other. Excuse my language if this is a family safe podcast, but it's wonderful to do that. We get to talk about it week in, week out, and usually when in a series, it lasts about 2 weeks. So in the first week, we record every Wednesday. You get to talk about it before the series starts, and you get to talk about it midway through the series, and you can have a completely different prediction. But the NHL is definitely one of my favorite sports to cover. It's very unpredictable, and you really gotta dig deep to find those best lines and find those value plays.
Of course, Huff, what is that like getting to cover the Super Bowl predictions and the coverage for the Super Bowl?
Yeah, that's definitely my favorite day of the year. It's like Christmas morning, waking up on Super Bowl Sunday, locking in the bets for the day. And I've had a pretty successful Super Bowl the past 2 years. Last year, I had the 2 first touchdowns I hit on Jalen Hurts and then Travis Kelce with the first team. So I was riding very high on cloud 9 through that first half of that game. I did have the Eagles to go on and win the game, but I did not even care that the Chiefs won. I had such success with the player props, but the Super Bowl is always a fun time. And going into our 3rd football season, it's definitely something that we look forward to every year.
Of course, Huff, first starting off with you, what is that like obviously covering the games and covering the spread and gambling on the games versus being a normal fan?
Yeah, so it definitely adds a certain aspect of the game that you don't look at from a fan perspective. For example, like as soon as I look at the schedule, I'm looking at the spread more than who's in the lineup, who's out of the lineup. I kind of base my opinion on, okay, the Steelers are coming into this week as a 2-point underdog against San Francisco. That kind of means Vegas thinks they can hang around in this game. Vegas usually knows more than I do. I mean, they always know more than I do, but I think you look at the spread and that kind of tells me, okay, they think this is going to be a lower scoring game. They think it's going to be a tighter game. The Steelers have a chance here. But like Mackie said, you really just got to look into where the money's at, where people are going, the injuries, the home field advantage, all that stuff comes into play in the NFL, especially. I think football is definitely one of the harder sports to call. I agree with Mackie's take that hockey is the one sport that anyone can win any given night. Football, you've heard the take any given Sunday. And I think that's definitely true with the NFL.
Of course, what about you, Mikey?
Yeah, so when you're talking about spreads and gambling in sports, I'm definitely a gambler before I'm a sports fan. Don't get me wrong, I'm a huge sports fan. I love all my teams and I root for them heavy, but I definitely love money more. So when it comes to that, you could be watching a game, it's a 16-point game, and you have a minus 14, and you're sitting there freaking out. Everyone's like, "Why are you sitting here freaking out? They're up 16 points." And I'm like, they cannot score again or I am going to lose. And it's just it's a whole different ball game because you're not really taking a team to win the game. You're taking a team to either cover a spread or just come within enough points to make it reasonable or something. But yeah, definitely it's a completely different ball game, and it's definitely more. It's brought a whole different mindset to watching sports.
Or even like you hear at the end of the NFL games when they hit like garbage time field goals or points that don't even matter, and you'll hear like the announcers be like, "And that touchdown means more to some people than
Yeah.
others."
Yeah, that's new though. 3 years ago you wouldn't hear anything like that, but sports gambling is so big now that the announcers get in on it. They know all the lines, so it's definitely a completely different ball game nowadays.
What are some of y'all's future plans with Hit the Books?
I think just obviously our plan coming into this was just to give us a platform. We didn't really have any end goal. Just kind of keep growing at the rate that we're at would be great. Keep getting, keep doing interviews, coming on other people's shows, trying to get people to give us a chance in their daily podcast rotation and their role. Hopefully we can teach you something about sports or sports gambling that you didn't know, make you some money going into an NFL Sunday. Or like we said, we do football, basketball, baseball, hockey, college football, college basketball. We do it all, even UFC and golf sometimes. So definitely something. Give us a follow on social media at hitthebooks.pod on Instagram, everywhere else, same thing on Twitter and all the whole 9 yards. But we post daily plays going on our social medias, whether it be, like we said, in the MLB or wherever. We have a live stream every Sunday for the NFL, giving out our picks for that NFL Sunday. Do that every Sunday at 10 a.m. So just kind of keep doing what we're doing, keep gaining ground on everyone else. Been doing this for 2 years. It's definitely been a grind, but it's been a lot of fun. We have a group of 4 guys that are really putting in a lot of work to make this grow. And I like where we're going. I think we have big things ahead for us.
Of course, what are some of the sports that you plan on covering in the future?
Yeah, I think, Mackie, I don't know about you. I think we're doing it kind of how we want to right now with the NFL. And like Mackie said, football and hockey are our main two. And then obviously we like to touch on the basketball. And then in the summer, when there's not as much going on with baseball, we like to touch on baseball as well to keep us in the sports world and give us some action to go in each and every night. But MLB playoffs is definitely something that we like to look forward to. Mackie, I don't know about you. What are your probably top 3 that we cover?
Yeah, I'm big on the college sports. I'm a big college guy. Probably out of the 4 of us, I'm the biggest on college. But those are the shortest seasons as well, so we don't really get to talk about those as much. But I'm definitely looking forward to college basketball. That's my favorite to cover as well. It's my favorite to bet. And March Madness, absolute best time of the year, best thing to bet on. That's what I'm really looking forward to.
Of course, with the WNBA adding gambling and stuff like that, do you see that y'all will start covering the WNBA on sports bets and stuff in the future?
It's tough to say because I don't know much about it, not watching anything, because kind of the reason that I kind of bet on what I do is the prior knowledge that I've had coming into before I was betting. And I think it's really hard to pick up a new sport just to bet on because I've done it, believe me. I've watched kind of just randomly. I'll watch tennis whenever like the US Open and stuff like that. And then this year was the first year I bet on it and thinking it's so easy. Like, oh yeah, this guy's got to win. This guy's got to win. It's like, just because I don't know much about the sport, I didn't realize how long the matches were, and that's just kind of not responsible. But yeah, so I think it's hard to pick up on new sports. So I think you got to do the research and see how things go before you just jump right in and start putting your hard-earned money on it.
What advice would you give those people that are looking to start out and have a podcast for sports bets?
Yeah, it's definitely a long road. I'll tell you that. If you go back and listen to our first episode and you listen to our most recent episode, they're completely different. You learn a lot along the way. You learn something new every day. With the 4 guys that we have, I mean, I'm learning something new every single time I talk to them, and we're texting in our group chat every single day. So you're always learning something new. There's always something fun going on, but it's definitely a long road. As long as you stick with it and you stick to a script and you're fully invested in it, then it could definitely work out in your favor. You just got to stay committed,
Yeah, nothing's gonna happen overnight. It's definitely a grind. You got to put in the groundwork to get something out there for people to see and for people to realize that you're legit in this business and you want to do something. And like you said, or like I said earlier, hopefully we can just teach someone a thing or two about sports betting or make them $1 or $2. So that's kind of my end goal.
That's great advice. Where can my listeners find y'all at on social media and podcast platforms?
So we're actually available on wherever you kind of find your podcast. I know you've heard that phrase before, but truly wherever you get your podcast, that's where you can find Hit the Books. Hit the Books podcast available everywhere. Same thing with social media, hitthebooks.pod, Hit the Books Pod on Twitter, I think, Mackie. But yeah, hitthebooks.pod, mainly everywhere on social media. Definitely check us out. Give us a follow. We post a lot of NFL content, a lot of sports content on our social media, a lot of reels, breaking news every week from Ace, and a 1 Minute Monday every minute, or every Monday for myself, just kind of breaking down what happened that weekend in the sports world.
Thank you again, Mackie and Tyler, for your interview, and best of luck in your future with Hit the Books.
Thank you
very much.
Thanks again for having us on. We'll have to get you on Hit the Books one week.
Thank you.
Definitely.
You can find Brandon Sports Talk on Brandon Sports Talk on Instagram at Brandon Sports Talk, Twitter at Talk_Brandon, and you can find me on YouTube at Brandon Sports Talk. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you again, Mackie and Tyler, for your interview, and best of luck in your future.
Thank you. Talk
Thank
to you
you.
soon, Brandon. Have a good one.
You've been watching Brandon Sports Talk. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe to Brandon Sports Talk on social media and on YouTube.